Well, hey, pretty excited today to talk to Perry Hawk. Perry is one of my favorite people. He's a coach. He's a triathlon club leader, and then he's also a race director. And I get to see Perry every year. He helps us with the clinics, but then also I've seen him at USAT Endurance Exchange. So I'm glad to be talking to Perry today. Talk a little bit about what's happening with the Mojo Triathlon Club, and just talk about what they're planning for 2024 season, and just learn a little bit more about what Perry has in store as well. So with that, Perry, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us a little bit about the club, and what's the plans for 2024?
Sure. So a little bit about me. I've been in the sport for over 10 years. I've done numerous races, actually too many to count right now. The sport has blessed me, taking me to, I think at last count, 10 different countries around the world racing. So needless to say, it's blessed me. So I like to be able to give back to this sport as much as I can, because it's given me so much. So
No,
my current role right now, as Craig said, I'm president of Mojo Triathlon. I've been in that role since the pandemic, believe it or not. I'm also the race director of the Mojo Triathlon, which takes place in August every year. And I also do swim coaching and endurance swims.
so Perry, I think the last time we talked was maybe 2 months ago at Endurance Exchange, and you did
Yep.
something pretty interesting in Canada, right?
Yeah, so I am doing training for an Arctic Ultra. I haven't decided if I'm doing the 300 mile or the 430 mile, but an Arctic Ultra, everything's colder, blustier, and just bulkier. So you have to drag a sled with you for anything more than 26, any race longer than 26.2 miles. So we'll be pulling our sleds with us with all of our gear and food and so forth in February 2025, and that's up in the Yukon.
What's the temperature forecast around in February in Yukon?
So the high is usually about -20, and the low can get down around -50, and that's in Celsius, but at -40, it's -40 either way. So that's kind of the crossover point. So it's pretty cold. The irony of the whole thing is you have to pace yourself in such a way that you don't sweat, because moisture is the number one killer out there.
Wow, how big is that race?
Um, it's got a, depending upon the distance, it can have at the start it can have upwards of over 100 people, but they're all doing various distances from a marathon all the way up to a 300 miler, and every other year they do a 430 milers. So that's why I'm kind of contemplating doing that one. I'm like, well, I'm going to be up there, what's another 130 miles? So wish
Yeah,
me luck.
that's amazing. Like I've said, you're one of the most interesting people I've met. You not only do Arctic ultras, but you do long swims and long runs and all that kind of stuff. So it's amazing. I would imagine it takes quite a while to train for a 300-mile ultra. So obviously you're in training mode pretty much most of this year. So
Yep.
we'll have to check in with you maybe at some point in time this year or after the event next year, kind of just see how things went. But that's really cool.
Yeah.
So kind of back into triathlon. So tell me a little bit more. How did the Mojo Triathlon Club get started? Where's it located?
Yeah.
What the membership size and all of that?
So we got started a long time ago, back in about 2010, 2011, when a few people in Mojo Running had talked about an Ironman they were training for, and all of a sudden, Paul, who had started Mojo Running, the store, as well as the running club, said, well, hey, let's get together and put together a triathlon club. And lo and behold, there was this whole kind of cult out there of triathletes. And so shortly thereafter, probably about 2015, Paul had retired, and the club kind of took over as a standalone club. And so now it's kind of run by a board of officers, president, vice president, treasurer, and so forth. And so we're located up in northern Cincinnati area. We don't really have a clubhouse per se, but we do a lot of cycling out of Mason area, as well as Fairfield, Hamilton area, because there's some bike trails there. The club's about 100 people, and yeah, so we have members in northern Kentucky all the way up through Wilmington, Ohio. We've got some members up near Findlay, which kind of leads into we really don't want to leave anyone behind. So if we get members from further away, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll put together some people to come train with you up in your area of Ohio or Kentucky. That way it can give you a sense of community as well up there. I have been, as I said, president since 2020, and I took over as race director last year.
That's interesting. You might have touched on it earlier. So tell us a little bit. How did you get into triathlon? What was kind of your path? What was were you into running before you got into it, or cycling? Tell us a little bit about your path into triathlon.
So I used to be really overweight. Matter of fact, I was pre-diabetic. I had a heart attack in 2008. And I was a single dad. So I would be mowing the lawn, and I always wanted to do something epic to show my son that, this really isn't who I am. This kind of fat person isn't who I am at heart, at the core. I grew up playing ice hockey. I played hockey through college, then kind of went to seed, so to speak. And a couple years after the heart attack, I started exercising. I joined the gym, and in my own little internal monologue that you always have when you're cutting the grass or something is, I would never do a marathon because running was punishment growing up. I'd never do a marathon unless it was on the back end of an Ironman. So growing up, I remember watching Wide World of Sports and the Ironman competition. And one of my heroes, believe it or not, is Julie Moss. Just the grit and determination that she put forward to finishing that race. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's what I want to do at some point in time. And so fast forward, I actually didn't stick to my old internal joke. My sister and I, we ran our first half marathon, or our first marathon together in Columbus in 2012. I did my first triathlon in 2012, and I did the Deer Creek Triathlon in 2012. And yeah, so I started out doing a lot of the HFP triathlons because they're local and they're fun, and you knew people there. And so I just kind of kept pushing myself to do other things as well as local races.
That's an amazing story, Perry. I've known you a couple of years now, and I would call you a friend, and because we see each other. I never knew that. That's an amazing story. I would have never guessed that person that you talk about from 2008 is you today, because you're not that person. So
Yeah,
I would never guess it. That's an amazing story, and thanks for sharing that. One of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on it. One of the things that we're seeing is kind of a resurgence in short course. And short course
Yep.
is, super sprints, and Olympic distance, triathlon, duathlon, aquabike. What do you see in your club, and why do you think there's such a resurgence? The big swing from the Ironman and the halves to kind of the more shorter distances. Why do you think that's happening?
Time commitment. It it I can remember training for my first sprint, and you spend an hour a day training. And an hour a day is absolutely a wonderful number to train. It keeps you in shape. As any physical therapist will tell you, motion is lotion. And these short courses, they give you a goal, but they also give you a reason to do something for an hour a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And nobody's asking anyone to go out and ride 50, 60 miles. So that's what makes these short races, these short course races, so wonderful. Is people can enjoy the experience without investing 16 to 18 hours a week into just training. They still allow for time with the family, they still allow time with the friends. And as I'd mentioned, I was a single dad and I did short courses. And so what I would do is what somebody infamously coined as working the cracks. So I would take my son to baseball practice and I would strap on the running shoes and go for a run while he's practicing baseball, or I'd pull the bike out and go for a ride while he's at baseball or basketball. I would wake up early, go swim, get him on the bus, and then go to work. And then after work, um, we would have his things. And sometimes, like I said, I'd go for a short run. But after he was done with his sports, I was done with my workouts. There's good and bad to that. I mean, I knew the other parents on the team, but I didn't form those cliques that that often do in kids sports. But in some way, it actually it worked out for the better because um, they would look over and be like, "Oh, there goes Kevin's dad." So Kevin got to form the real good friendships, and I didn't have to get into the drama of all the parent stuff. Um, so yeah, it's the short courses are great for time management and for busy people and for young families.
Um, Perry, that's amazing, because I think so often we forget about the fathers that are in the sport and the single dads. We think about obviously life and family balance, but thinking about, I guess, gives me a new perspective about, there are single dads who do this sport as well, who are balancing the same things that another parent would be balancing. So it's really good to hear that information. So Perry, if I'm doing my first triathlon, am I thinking about doing my first triathlon? How could Mojo Triathlon Club help me achieve my goals?
Oh, how we can help is it's pretty lengthy, to be honest. Um, First and foremost, somebody tackling their first, they don't know what they don't know. And I know that's kind of a catch-all phrase, but you get into triathlon and the old joke is why suck at one sport when you can suck at three? Well, you just compounded this whole how to even prepare to train for something. Like before I started looking into it and got involved, I thought, man, I need to do each one of these every day. I need to swim every day. I need to run every day, and I need to bike every day. And that's just not how it works. And for me, I connected with Mojo, and they're like, no, 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 that's not what you do. You do one a day. Sometimes you do a brick. Um, but what Mojo offers also are some group rides. And if you go out on just the group rides on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then you maybe find somebody to ride with on a Saturday, you're gonna be ready for a sprint triathlon. And if you meet up with Mojo for running for the runs on speed work on Tuesdays and the longer runs on Saturdays, you're gonna be ready. We also have open water swims that you come out and kind of make nice with open water, because that's a big fear for a lot of people. We offer lifeguard open water swims here in Cincinnati. And, it's a great way to kind of say, hey, open water isn't as bad. And by the way, there's no sharks in this lake, so we're good with that. There and the social aspect, hey, bouncing stuff off people, hey, how do you guys do transition? How do you set up transition? Well, we put on a clinic usually every year. This is how I set up transition. This is how somebody else sets it up. This is how another person does it. There is no right or wrong way to do it, as long as it works for you. You can do it any way you want as long as it works for you. And um, people will kind of start to feel and ask questions, and um, it's a great venue to do such.
You shared a little bit about open water swimming, and I know that you have some involvement personally as a coach through, is it vector coaching? Maybe
Yep.
share a little bit more about vector coaching and how you can improve somebody's swim and even improve their triathlon performance.
Yeah. So I own and run Vector Coaching. I trained under Paul Newsome, who runs the Swim Smooth app and training program. Um, and I'll actually be spending a little over a week with Paul doing some other certifications such coming up. And I know that swimming is one of the um toughest things for triathletes to kind of get their head wrapped around. So I offer video analysis. I can look at your stroke and we can kind of break it down into areas of improvement, or I can do on deck coaching. Like for some of the elite athletes, I'm on deck once a week where we're working one on one to push them to that next level. So anywhere from just a quick, hey, can you take a peek? Is there any low hanging fruit that, will help, to, meeting up with you and HFP and putting on the open water swim clinics and getting people used to swimming in a group and bumping in the water.
If I lived in Findlay or Cleveland or somewhere else, would you be able to help my swim?
Yeah, I would. And then that's not uncommon.
All right, that's excellent. So if I want to interested in vector coaching and or learning a little bit more about the Mojo Triathlon Club, where would I find this information out? Is there a website, Facebook page?
So we have vectorcoachingllc.com. The Mojo race is actually mojotriathlon.com. And then we have the Mojo Club, which is mojotriathlonclub.com. And you can find the Mojo Club also on Facebook under Mojo Tri Club.
Okay, excellent. So I'll post that information in the video description. One last item. Tell us what's going on with the triathlon this year, the date. I heard there's an exciting designation this year. So tell us a little bit more about what's happening.
So I last year I talked with some of the athletes, and so I put together a panel this year of para athletes and with my assistant RD, and we revamped the course so it is para friendly. There is no curbs, there's no grass. Everything is on paved surfaces for wheelchaired athletes. And there's room for them to maneuver around other athletes. So when we did all this and we submitted it to USAT, we got a designation to be a para series race. So we are now a para series race, and the race takes place August 25th. Like most triathlons, at 7 or 7:15 in the morning, depending on sun, and we're happy to do that, and we're super excited about how this is going to turn out, because we used to have an out and back, and then we'd run around the lake you swim in. Well, with the revamp of the run course, it's going to be a really cool finish area, we think, and it's going to be we feel a lot more spectator friendly as well, because everything is now in a pretty central area of transition, where we're going to allow the clubs to set up and the finish. Really, the swim start now is kind of about 200 yards away. And so when they exit the swim, they'll be running right by their club tents and headed to transition, then out onto the bike course. And then they'll be running right by their club tents down the finisher chute as well. So it's going to, we think, make for a great spectator-friendly event.
That's amazing, and that's a USAT sanctioned event. And just because you mentioned it's a para series event, there's obviously amateur age groups and so forth like that. Anybody can participate in that. And is that can you find that information on the club website, or is a specific website for it?
Yeah, mojotriathlon.com. I had a soft launch of the website a few weeks ago because I revamped the website, and we updated some of the photos and so forth. That way it didn't get a little stagnant. So there's fresh information out there on how to register. Like a lot of things, we still use active.com. So the registration site is actually still active, but you can get through it through mojotriathlon.com.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So, Perry, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Learned a lot about you as an athlete, as an individual. Great story about the club, and about you as a coach, and also you as a race director. I mean, I think it's amazing. You're like what we call the most interesting man in Ohio, kind of thing. So
I wouldn't do that.
One of my favorite people. You're one of my favorite people to talk to and see. So great talking with you. Great learning a little bit more about the club and everything. And look forward to seeing you this summer.
And I was just actually looking at the calendar, because I have your race in Deer Creek. That's what, June 2nd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And there's another one before it, but the Deer Creek one's closer for us. That's why it's on my calendar right now. I think you have a one earlier in the year.
Yeah, we have one. Well, we have the Ohio Race for Reason. That's at the end of April, and then we have a gravel bike, and then we have that, and then we have some trail runs, because you also do some trail running yourself, right?
I do. And matter of fact, I've already told you I can't do your Caesars Creek 50K because I'm doing your swim clinic that day.
Oh.
So
well, maybe we need to start the either the swim clinic early or the race later or something like that to get you in on that. So but anyway, so great talking with you, and we'll be talking with you more shortly, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Take care, Craig. Great talking with you.
Thank you.